I'm Amanda, 28 years old, raised in a middle-class home in suburban Chicago where I always felt like the outsider. My artwork, my dreams, my voice, all seemed invisible in my own family. Last month, during what should have been a normal dinner, my father slammed his fist on the table and shouted words that shattered something inside me. "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything." His rage hung in the air, but something inside me finally broke free. If he thought I only took, I would show him exactly what taking it all back looked like. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt undervalued by someone who should have loved you unconditionally. Growing up, our family portraits painted the perfect picture. My stern father, Richard, 53, with his military posture and perpetual frown. My passive mother, Eleanor, 50, whose smile never quite reached her eyes. My golden child brother, Michael, 31, with his trophy collection and straight-A report cards, and me, the odd one out. My earliest memories were happy ones, finger painting with Mom while Dad was at work, weekend picnics at the lakeside park, and bedtime stories where the princesses always saved themselves. But as I grew older, the atmosphere at home changed, or perhaps I just became more aware of the tension that had always existed. Dad worked as a financial advisor, and he wore his success like armor. He'd built himself up from nothing, as he reminded us, at every opportunity. "I put food on this table," was his mantra, his justification for the strict household rules and high expectations that governed our lives. Mom had given up her career as a nurse to raise us, a sacrifice Dad frequently referenced when arguments arose. Then there was Michael. 3 years my senior, he excelled at everything he touched, captain of the debate team, quarterback on the football team, valedictorian. The walls of our living room chronicled his achievements, diplomas and medals occupying prime real estate, while my art contest certificates were relegated to the refrigerator, temporary decorations that disappeared when new bills and grocery lists needed space. I discovered my passion for art in 3rd grade when Ms. Reynolds praised my watercolor painting of our backyard oak tree. "You have a gift, Amanda," she told me, the first time anyone had identified something special in me. I rushed home, painting clutched in my hands, only to have Dad glance at it and ask, "What's that supposed to be?" before returning to Michael's math competition trophy. Despite this, I pursued art throughout school, finding refuge in the art room during lunch periods. Dad viewed my artistic interests as a hobby at best, a waste of time at worst. "You can't eat paintings," he'd say whenever I mentioned art school. By senior year of high school, I'd surrendered to his practical vision for my future, applying to state universities for business degrees instead of the art programs I coveted. College became a compromise, a business major with a minor in graphic design. Even then, Dad questioned the practicality of design courses. "At least with business, you'll be employable," he'd remark during holiday breaks, as if my passion equated to future unemployment. Throughout those years, the comparisons to Michael never ceased. "Your brother had a job lined up before graduation," or "Michael's already putting money in his retirement account." The message was clear. I wasn't measuring up to the family standard. Mom floated between us, a well-intentioned buffer who never quite protected me from Dad's disapproval. "That's just how your father shows he cares," she'd explain after particularly harsh criticism. "He wants you to succeed." Her definition of success and mine diverged drastically, but I never found the courage to tell her so. After graduation, I secured a position at a small marketing firm in Chicago. The salary wasn't impressive, but it provided independence, my apartment, my bills, my life. I decorated my space with the artwork I'd created and collected, building the creative sanctuary my childhood home never was. Despite the tension, I maintained contact with my family. Sunday dinners became a monthly obligation, each visit following the same script. Dad interrogating me about my career progress, Mom serving food with nervous energy, Michael dominating conversation with his latest accomplishments. I'd return home emotionally drained, promising myself that next time would be different, knowing it wouldn't be. These gatherings inevitably ended with some critique of my life choices. When are you going to find a real career? Or that apartment is in such a questionable neighborhood. Sometimes the comments were subtler, sighs when I mentioned a new art class, or pointed questions about my savings account. Through it all, I continued showing up, bringing bottles of wine I couldn't really afford, helping Mom with dishes, listening to Dad's lectures about financial responsibility. Some desperate part of me still sought their approval, still believed that eventually they would see me, really see me, and find value in who I was, not who they wanted me to be. What they never acknowledged was how much I actually contributed. When Dad briefly lost his job during the recession, I quietly helped with 2 mortgage payments, telling Mom it was just until things stabilize. When Michael needed a security deposit for his first apartment, I lent him the money interest-free. When Mom's sister was diagnosed with cancer, I drove Mom to visit her every weekend for 3 months. These contributions went unmentioned, perhaps unnoticed. I became the family's emotional support, the peacekeeper, the one who remembered birthdays and anniversaries, who organized holiday gatherings when Mom was overwhelmed. None of this registered as giving in my father's ledger of family contributions. I wasn't perfect. I had my moments of resentment, of withdrawing when the criticism became too much. But I remained connected, believing that family meant accepting the flaws and loving anyway. I just didn't realize how one-sided that acceptance had become. The evening that changed everything began innocuously enough. Michael had received a significant promotion at his investment firm, and Mom organized a celebratory dinner at their house. I marked the date in my calendar, mentally preparing myself for the usual family dynamics while hoping this focus on Michael might actually make for a pleasant evening. I spent more than I should have on a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon from a vineyard Dad had once mentioned admiring. I chose my outfit carefully, a navy blue dress that projected professionalism without trying too hard, paired with the pearl earrings Mom had given me for my 25th birthday. Looking in the mirror, I rehearsed expressions of interest for Michael's stories and neutral responses to Dad's inevitable questions about my career trajectory. This time will be different, I told myself during the 30-minute drive to their suburban home. It's Michael's night. Just keep the conversation on him. The house looked the same as always, pristine lawn, trimmed hedges, and the American flag Dad proudly displayed year-round. Mom answered the door with a hurried smile, already wearing her good pearls and the slight furrow between her brows that signaled stress. "Amanda, you look lovely," she said, accepting the wine with appreciation. "Your father's just opened some champagne for a toast." The living room smelled of furniture polish and Mom's signature potpourri. Dad stood by the fireplace, champagne flute in hand, while Michael lounged on the sofa, scrolling through his phone. They both looked up when I entered. "There she is," Dad said, his tone neutral. "We were beginning to think you'd be late." I was actually 15 minutes early, but I smiled and accepted the champagne Mom handed me. "Congratulations, Michael. Vice President of Operations is impressive." Michael pocketed his phone, his expression smug. "Thanks. It was between me and Wilson from the East Coast office, but the board unanimously chose me." Dad clapped Michael's shoulder. "Because they recognize talent and work ethic when they see it. A toast to my son, the youngest VP in company history." We clinked glasses, and for a moment, the atmosphere was genuinely celebratory. Mom had prepared all of Michael's favorites: prime rib, twice-baked potatoes, and asparagus with hollandaise sauce. The conversation flowed easily at first, centered around Michael's new responsibilities and the perks of his position. "They're giving me a company car," Michael announced as Mom served the salad. "And the year-end bonus structure is incredible." "That's the reward for dedication," Dad nodded approvingly. "Put in the work and the recognition follows." The subtle glance he cast my way wasn't lost on me, but I maintained my smile, determined not to rise to the bait. Unfortunately, my resolve didn't matter. "Speaking of work," Dad pivoted, turning his attention to me. "How's that design job of yours going?" "Still making logos for local businesses." The slight dismissiveness in his tone made my shoulders tense. "Actually, we just landed a national client. I'm leading the rebranding project." "Is that right?" Dad raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident. Must be paying better than before, then. The exposure is valuable, I replied carefully. And yes, there was a raise involved. Exposure doesn't pay mortgages, Dad chuckled, cutting into his prime rib. But I suppose it's a step up from where you were. Mom interjected quickly. Amanda's company won an award last year, didn't they, dear? They did, I confirmed, grateful for her rare attempt at highlighting my achievement. Michael snorted softly. Those industry awards are basically participation trophies. Everyone gets one eventually. Unlike Michael's President's Circle Award, Dad added proudly. Only the top 1% qualify for that. And just like that, we were back to Michael's accomplishments. I took a long sip of wine, reminding myself that I'd expected this. The conversation drifted to Michael's new condo purchase, Dad offering financial advice about mortgage rates and investment opportunities. Amanda, you should really consider buying instead of renting, Dad said during a lull. You're throwing money away every month. Real estate in my neighborhood is expensive, I explained. And I like the flexibility of renting right now. Flexibility for what? Dad pressed. It's not like that job of yours is going to suddenly transfer you somewhere exciting. The comment stung, especially because he had no idea about the email sitting in my inbox, an offer from a prestigious design agency in New York, asking if I'd be interested in interviewing for a senior position. Actually, I began, the words escaping before I could reconsider. I might have an opportunity in New York. A major agency there reached out about a senior designer role. The table fell silent. Mom's fork paused midway to her mouth, while Michael's expression shifted to something unreadable. Dad's reaction was the most dramatic. His face flushed, and he set down his knife and fork with deliberate care. New York, he finally said. You can't be serious. I am. The interview is next week, over video call. You'd uproot your entire life for some job? Dad's voice rose slightly. Leave your family behind? It's a significant career opportunity, I explained, trying to keep my tone neutral. The kind that doesn't come along often. So you just go? After everything we've done for you? The accusation in his tone was unmistakable. Dad, it's just an interview at this point. This is typical, he interrupted, shaking his head. Always chasing these artistic fantasies instead of building something stable. Michael jumped in, his tone condescending. Design jobs are a dime a dozen, Amanda. In this economy, you should be grateful for stable employment, not gambling on some New York pipe dream. I felt my face growing hot. It's hardly a gamble when they sought me out based on my portfolio. Portfolio, Dad scoffed. Pictures on a computer screen. Meanwhile, your brother is managing millions in assets and making real contributions. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Richard, let's not. No, Eleanor. She needs to hear this, Dad insisted, his voice rising. We've supported her through every whim and phase. Paid for that business degree she barely uses. And now she wants to run off to New York like we mean nothing. That's not fair, I said quietly, hands trembling beneath the table. I've been supporting myself since graduation. After we put you through college, Dad exclaimed. Do you have any idea what that cost us? What sacrifices we made? The familiar guilt rose within me, but alongside it came something new, a spark of anger. I've made sacrifices too, Dad. Like what? He demanded. Giving up some art classes? Welcome to adulthood, Amanda. It's about responsibility, not following every creative urge. I've been responsible, I insisted, my voice stronger now. I've built a career, paid my bills, established myself. Established? Dad laughed harshly. In what? Making pretty pictures while your brother manages multi-million-dollar portfolios? While he's buying property and planning for retirement. Michael had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but he remained silent, letting Dad continue his tirade. All you do is take. Dad's voice escalated to a shout as he slammed his fist on the table, making the silverware jump. You've never given this family anything. The words echoed in the sudden silence. Mom's eyes widened in shock. Michael stared at his plate, and I sat perfectly still, feeling as though I'd been physically struck. My hands weren't just trembling now. They were shaking visibly. My heart raced so fast I could hear my pulse in my ears. The room seemed to shrink around me, the walls closing in as Dad's accusation hung in the air between us. Never given anything? The mortgage payments, the emotional support, the countless hours spent listening to Mom's worries, the holidays I'd organized, the times I'd defended Dad to my friends when they questioned his harshness. None of it counted? I placed my napkin beside my half-eaten dinner and stood up slowly. No dramatic exit, no shouting match, just quiet dignity as I gathered my purse. "Amanda," Mom began, her voice pleading. "Thank you for dinner," I said softly. "Congratulations again, Michael." I walked out of the dining room, through the foyer, and out the front door without looking back. No one followed me. The sound of the door closing behind me felt strangely final, as if I'd closed a chapter of my life along with it. The drive home passed in a blur of streetlights and tears. Every dismissive comment, every comparison to Michael, every time my contributions had gone unnoticed, they all replayed in my mind like a twisted highlight reel. But overshadowing everything were those 9 words, "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything." My apartment welcomed me like an old friend that night, the space I had created entirely for myself, decorated with pieces of my soul. Watercolor landscapes hung alongside abstract oil paintings, some purchased from local artists, others created during late-night sessions when sleep eluded me. My vintage drafting table stood by the window, current projects neatly organized beside my computer. This was my sanctuary, the place where I was fully myself, without apology or explanation. Sleep refused to come. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my father's words reverberating in my mind. "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything." How could he believe that? How could he not see all I had contributed over the years? Around 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and made a cup of chamomile tea. Curled up on my window seat, I watched the occasional car pass on the street below, its headlights briefly illuminating the quiet neighborhood before darkness returned. Memories surfaced unbidden, being 10 years old and proudly showing Dad my straight-A report card, only to have him ask why I hadn't joined the math club like Michael. Being 16 and winning a regional art competition, my parents skipping the ceremony because Michael had a football game the same day. My college graduation, where Dad's only comment was that business graduates should wear suits to the ceremony, not casual dresses under their gowns. The morning brought no clarity, only exhaustion and a dull headache. I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years, then texted my best friend Jessica. "Family dinner disaster. Need to talk." Jessica arrived an hour later with bagels and coffee, settling onto my couch with the ease of a decade-long friendship. I recounted the previous night's events, my voice occasionally breaking despite my attempts to remain composed. "Honey, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear," Jessica said when I finished, her expression serious. "What your dad did last night was emotional abuse. Not just last night, the pattern you're describing goes back years." "Abuse," I repeated, the word feeling too heavy, too severe. "He's just traditional. He has high expectations." Jessica shook her head firmly. "There's a difference between high expectations and constantly making someone feel worthless. Nothing you do is ever good enough for him. He compares you to your brother, dismisses your accomplishments, and now he's accusing you of never contributing? That's not traditional. That's toxic." Part of me wanted to defend my father, to explain away his behavior as stress or misunderstanding. But another part, a part that had been silenced for too long, recognized the truth in Jessica's words. "I've always tried so hard," I whispered, tears threatening again. "Nothing ever seems to count." "Because he's moved the goalposts your entire life," Jessica replied gently. "The question is, what are you going to do now?" That question haunted me for days. What would I do? Continue the cycle, showing up for more criticism and dismissal? Cut ties completely?
Neither option felt right.
I spent that weekend sorting through old boxes I'd brought from my parents' house when I'd moved out, childhood mementos, school projects, family photos. Each item told a story, not always the one I wanted to remember. A photo album from high school revealed a pattern I hadn't fully recognized before. Images of family events where I stood slightly apart, my smile not quite reaching my eyes. Dad's arm always around Michael's shoulders, Mom's standing between us, as if physically maintaining peace. I found my old diaries, reading entries with fresh perspective. Dad didn't come to my art show today. Said he was too tired from work. Mom came for 10 minutes, then had to leave to make dinner. I'd ended that entry with, maybe next time my paintings will be better. Always blaming myself, always believing I just needed to try harder, do more, be more like Michael. Then I discovered financial records I'd kept. Naive as it seems now, I'd documented every contribution I'd made to my family, perhaps subconsciously gathering evidence of my worth. The mortgage payments during Dad's unemployment. The check for Mom's car repair. The money I'd lent Michael that he'd never fully repaid. Alongside these were lists of non-financial contributions, driving Mom to doctor's appointments, helping Dad organize his home office, attending every one of Michael's games and graduations despite my own commitments rarely receiving the same support. The evidence mounted, page after page of giving that had gone unacknowledged, unappreciated, and now, according to my father, had never happened at all. As Sunday evening approached, my phone remained silent. No call from Mom checking in, no text from Michael. Their silence spoke volumes about family priorities. My exit had barely caused a ripple in their world. Monday morning, I returned to work, the New York interview opportunity a beacon on my horizon. During lunch, I called Jessica again. I'm angry, I admitted, surprising myself with the force of the emotion. Not just hurt anymore, I'm angry. Good, Jessica replied simply. Anger means you're recognizing the injustice instead of internalizing it. He said I never gave anything, Jess. After everything I've done, practical things, emotional things, financial things they don't even know about, he still sees me as just taking from them. So, what are you going to do with that anger? She asked. The question crystallized something within me. I'm going to take it all back, I said slowly, the words forming as the idea took shape. What do you mean? If Dad thinks I've never given anything, then clearly nothing I've given matters to him. So I'm taking it back, my time, my energy, my emotional investment, my financial support. All of it. That sounds like boundaries, Jessica observed. Healthy ones. Boundaries, I repeated, the concept both foreign and appealing. Yes, I guess that's exactly what I need. For the first time since the disastrous dinner, I felt a sense of purpose replacing the hurt. This wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about reclaiming my self-worth, about refusing to participate in a dynamic that had diminished me for years. I would take back what I'd given, not in a petty, material sense, but in a profound reclamation of my value. I would no longer offer emotional support that went unrecognized, financial assistance that went unacknowledged, or loyalty that went unrewarded. The shame and inadequacy that had followed me from my parents' dining room began to dissipate, replaced by a growing conviction that I deserved better, and that better might need to come from creating distance rather than continually seeking approval. That night, looking at the New York job opportunity email, I allowed myself to imagine a life built entirely on my terms, free from the constant shadow of disapproval. The possibility was both terrifying and exhilarating. I've never given this family anything, I murmured to myself, a bitter laugh escaping. Well, Dad, you're about to find out exactly what nothing really looks like. The following week, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Patterson, the therapist I'd seen sporadically since college. Her office remained unchanged, calming blue walls, comfortable armchairs, and the subtle scent of lavender that somehow made difficult conversations easier. It's been a while, she noted as I settled into my usual chair. What brings you back today? I recounted the dinner disaster, my subsequent realizations, and my newfound anger. Dr. Patterson listened without interruption, occasionally making notes but mostly maintaining steady eye contact that encouraged me to continue. I want to take back everything I've given, I concluded. But I'm not sure what that actually looks like in practice. Taking back is an interesting concept, she replied thoughtfully. What does it mean to you, Amanda? It means, I paused, organizing my thoughts. It means stopping the one-way flow of support and care. It means acknowledging my own worth even if they won't. It means establishing consequences for how I've been treated. Dr. Patterson nodded. Those sound like boundaries, which we've discussed before. The difference I'm hearing now is your readiness to enforce them. I've always worried that boundaries meant losing my family completely, I admitted. Boundaries aren't walls, she reminded me. They're guidelines for how you'll allow yourself to be treated. The people who respect them are the ones worth keeping in your life. We spent the next hour exploring what healthy boundaries might look like in my family situation. No more dropping everything when called. No more financial assistance without acknowledgement. No more accepting criticism without response. What about the New York opportunity? Dr. Patterson asked as our session neared its end. I'm doing the interview, I said with newfound certainty. Whether I take the job or not, I need to make decisions based on what's best for me, not what will please my family. That's significant progress, she smiled. Remember that setting boundaries often triggers resistance. People who are accustomed to your compliance may react negatively when you change the dynamic. Her warning echoed in my mind as I left her office. Of course there would be resistance. My family had benefited from my compliance for years. But for the first time, I felt prepared to withstand their disapproval. Back home, I created a literal list of everything I had given my family over the years. The document grew longer than I'd anticipated. Financial contributions, emotional support, time spent on family obligations, opportunities sacrificed to meet their expectations. Seeing it all itemized was both validating and infuriating. I called my friend Rebecca that evening. Unlike Jessica, who had known me since college, Rebecca had gone through a similar family estrangement last year. Her insight would be valuable. The hardest part, Rebecca told me over video chat, was accepting that they might never understand why I needed distance. I kept wanting them to validate my decision, which was just another form of seeking their approval. Did they ever come around? I asked. My mom did, eventually. My dad still thinks I'm being dramatic. She shrugged, but I could see the lingering pain in her expression. The thing is, their understanding stopped being the goal. My peace became more important. My peace. The concept was almost foreign after years of prioritizing family harmony over my own well-being. The New York interview request gained new significance in this context. No longer just a career opportunity, it represented a physical boundary distance that would make my emotional boundaries easier to maintain. I prepared for the interview with renewed focus, creating a portfolio that showcased my best work and researching the agency thoroughly. When the video interview arrived, I spoke with confidence about my vision and expertise, no longer diminishing my accomplishments as I'd been conditioned to do. We're very impressed, the creative director said at the conclusion. We'll be in touch next week with next steps. The potential of this new path energized me, but I knew I couldn't move forward without addressing the situation with my family. Running away wasn't the answer. I needed to confront the dynamic directly before I could truly leave it behind. I decided to start with Michael. As the golden child, he'd benefited most from the family dynamic, but he was also the least emotionally invested in maintaining it. If anyone might understand my perspective, it would be him. Can we meet for coffee? I texted him. Just the two of us. It's important. His response came hours later. Kind of busy with the new position.
Can it wait?
No, I replied simply. It can't. After another lengthy pause. Fine. Saturday morning at Westfield Coffee Shop.
10 Uhr morgens.
While waiting for Saturday, I prepared for the confrontation in ways that surprised me. I went shopping for an outfit that made me feel confident, a structured blazer in deep burgundy, well-fitted jeans, and boots with just enough heel to put me at eye level with most men. It wasn't armor exactly, but it felt like a visual declaration of my worth. I also made a subtle change to my appearance, cutting my long hair to shoulder length and adding highlights that brighten my features. The change wasn't dramatic, but it was noticeable, a physical manifestation of my internal transformation. In my apartment, I practiced what I would say to Michael, to Mom, to Dad. I rehearsed responses to their likely defenses and deflections. That's not how it happened. You're being too sensitive. After everything we've done for you. The anxiety remained, but it was tempered by determination. I was no longer seeking their approval or understanding. I was claiming my right to be treated with respect. Friday night, I received an email from the New York agency inviting me for a second interview, this one in person. They would cover travel expenses for a Monday meeting. The timing felt significant. This conversation with my family wasn't just about the past, but about creating space for my future. I confirmed the interview immediately, then went to bed early, knowing I would need all my emotional resources for the confrontation ahead. Westfield Coffee Shop bustled with Saturday morning customers when I arrived, exactly at 10 o'clock. Michael was already there, occupying a corner table, his attention fixed on his phone. He wore a casual but expensive sweater, his hair perfectly styled, the picture of success and confidence. Taking a deep breath, I approached the table.
Man.
He glanced up, his expression neutral. Amanda, you look different. I cut my hair, I replied, sliding into the seat across from him. Thanks for meeting me. Sure, he shrugged, pocketing his phone. Though I'm not sure what's so urgent we couldn't discuss it over text. A server approached, and we ordered a simple black coffee for Michael, a chai latte for me. When she departed, the awkward silence stretched between us. So, Michael finally said, "Is this about what Dad said at dinner? Because you know how he gets when he's worked up." He didn't mean it the way it sounded. Actually, I think he meant exactly what he said. I replied calmly. And that's the problem. Michael sighed, the sound heavy with impatience. Amanda, you know Dad. He has high standards. For me, I interrupted. His standards for me are impossible to meet. You, on the other hand, can do no wrong. That's not fair, Michael protested, though his gaze shifted away from mine. I get criticism, too. When is the last time Dad told you that you've never contributed anything to the family? I asked pointedly. Michael remained silent, his fingers tapping restlessly against his coffee mug. I've been thinking about what Dad said. I continued, and I realized something important. He doesn't believe I've given anything because he's never recognized my contributions. What contributions? Michael asked, his tone more curious than confrontational. Methodically, I began listing the ways I'd supported our family over the years. The mortgage payments during Dad's unemployment, the emotional support during Mom's health scare, the countless family gatherings I'd organized while everyone else simply showed up. Michael's expression shifted from dismissive to uncomfortable as my list grew longer. When I mentioned the money I'd lent him for his first apartment security deposit, money he'd never fully repaid, he had the grace to look embarrassed. I didn't know about the mortgage payments, he said quietly. No one did. Mom asked me not to tell Dad I was helping. She said it would hurt his pride. I took a sip of my chai, letting the information sink in. That's been the pattern. I give, but it's either minimized or kept secret, so in Dad's mind, it never happened. Michael studied me with new awareness. What do you want from me, Amanda? An apology. I don't want anything from you. I replied honestly. I'm not here to ask for validation or support. I'm letting you know that I'm changing how I engage with this family. I'm taking back what I've given, my time, my emotional energy, my financial support. Taking it back? Michael frowned. What does that even mean? It means I'm no longer available for Dad's criticism or Mom's enabling. It means I'm making decisions based on what's good for me, not what will please everyone else. It means I'm interviewing for that job in New York on Monday. You're seriously considering moving? His surprise seemed genuine. I'm doing more than considering. If they offer me the position, I'm taking it. Michael ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting it slightly. Look, I'll talk to Dad. He was out of line. I don't need you to intercede for me. I cut in firmly. I'm perfectly capable of handling this myself. Then why tell me at all? He demanded, frustration edging into his voice. Because despite everything, you're still my brother. And because I thought you should understand why things are about to change. Michael fell silent, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its defensive edge. Dad's hard on me too, you know. Just in different ways. The admission surprised me. What do you mean? The promotion I just got? Dad's first question wasn't congratulations or how do you feel? It was, when can you expect the next one? Michael stared into his coffee. Nothing's ever enough. I just hide it better than you do. For the first time, I glimpsed the pressure behind my brother's perfect facade, the constant striving to maintain Dad's approval, the exhaustion of living up to impossible expectations. That's not healthy, I said gently. For either of us. Maybe not, he acknowledged with a slight shrug. But it's our normal. It doesn't have to be, I suggested. We could create a different normal. Michael offered a non-committal nod, clearly uncomfortable with this level of vulnerability. So, what's your next move? Confronting Dad directly? Eventually. I'm talking to Mom first. Good luck with that, he said with a hint of his usual cynicism. Mom's been running interference for Dad for 30 years. I don't see that changing. I'm not trying to change her, I clarified. I'm changing how I respond to her. As we finished our coffees, an unexpected moment of connection passed between us, a shared recognition of the dysfunctional system we'd both been caught in, albeit in different roles. While Michael wasn't ready to challenge the status quo the way I was, something had shifted in our relationship. Let me know how the New York interview goes, he said as we parted outside the coffee shop. That agency has a solid reputation. The fact that he knew about the agency suggested he'd actually looked it up after I mentioned it, a small acknowledgement of my professional world that felt significant. I will, I promised, offering a genuine smile. Thanks for meeting me, Michael. The following day, I called my mother. Unlike the direct confrontation with Michael, this conversation needed to happen at a distance. Mom's tendency to deflect and smooth things over would be harder to maintain over the phone. Amanda, darling, she answered on the third ring, her voice carrying its usual note of nervous energy. I was just thinking about you. Hi, Mom, I replied, settling onto my window seat. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Of course, though I'm in the middle of making a casserole for the Hendersons. John had that hip surgery, you remember? But I can certainly chat while I work. Typical mom, always busy with some active service that made serious conversation difficult. Not this time. Mom, I need your full attention for this conversation. It's important. The background noise of clattering dishes paused. Is everything all right? Are you sick?
I'm not sick, Mom.
But things aren't all right between us, especially after what happened at Michael's celebration dinner. A heavy sigh came through the line. Oh, Amanda, you know your father didn't mean what he said. He was just worked up about the idea of you moving so far away. Whether he meant it or not, he said it. I replied firmly. And it wasn't just what he said that night. It's what he's been saying and doing for years. What do you mean, dear? I mean the constant criticism, the comparisons to Michael, the dismissal of my accomplishments and contributions. Your father just wants what's best for you, Mom offered, her standard defense.
No, Mom.
Dad wants what he thinks is best for me, without ever asking what I want or need. Silence stretched between us, uncomfortable and heavy. Amanda, families have disagreements. It's normal. This isn't about a disagreement, I interrupted. This is about a pattern of behavior that's been harmful to me, and it's about your role in enabling that behavior. My role? Her voice rose slightly. I've always tried to keep peace in this family. Keeping peace isn't the same as promoting health, I said gently. When Dad criticizes me and you say nothing, you're choosing his comfort over my well-being. Mom's soft sniffle came through the line, tears, her go-to response when confronted with uncomfortable truths. Usually, this would be my cue to backtrack, to comfort and reassure her. Not today. I'm not calling to make you feel bad, Mom. I'm calling because I'm making changes in how I engage with this family, and I wanted you to understand why. What kind of changes? She asked warily. I'm establishing boundaries. I won't be attending family gatherings where I'm subjected to criticism and comparison. I won't be providing financial or emotional support that goes unacknowledged. And I'm pursuing opportunities that are right for me, even if they take me away from Chicago. You're cutting us off. The fear in her voice was palpable.
No, Mom.
I'm asking to be treated with respect. How you and Dad respond to that request will determine what our relationship looks like going forward. More sniffles, followed by a soft admission. He is too hard on you sometimes. I know that. Then why have you never said so? I asked, the question that had lingered for years finally spoken aloud. It's complicated, Amanda. Your father is set in his ways, and confrontation never seems to help. Avoiding confrontation hasn't helped either, I pointed out. It's just allowed the problem to continue. What do you want me to do? She asked, sounding genuinely lost. I don't expect you to change, Dad, but I do expect you to respect the boundaries I'm setting for myself. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, circling through Mom's defenses, her tears, and eventually, reluctant acknowledgement that things needed to change. She promised to talk to your father, though we both knew such conversations rarely led to meaningful shifts. As we prepared to end the call, Mom surprised me with a question. Are you really considering that job in New York? More than considering. I have a second interview tomorrow. A long pause followed. You'd be good at it, she said finally. You've always been so talented. The simple acknowledgement of my abilities, something so basic yet so rare for my family, caught me off guard. Thank you, Mom. Will you let me know how the interview goes? She asked tentatively. I will, I promised, hearing the unspoken request for continued connection despite the boundaries I was establishing. After hanging up, I sat for a long time, processing the conversation. 2 confrontations down, 1 to go, and undoubtedly the most difficult one remained. But first, I had a future to claim in New York. 2 weeks after my successful New York interview, I stood on my parents' doorstep, heart pounding as if I'd run a marathon. The job offer had come through, senior designer with a substantial salary increase and creative freedom I'd never experienced in Chicago. I'd accepted immediately, giving notice at my current position and beginning the process of planning my relocation. Today, I would tell my parents face to face. Not asking permission, not seeking approval, simply informing them of my decision and addressing the lingering issues from our last encounter. I rang the doorbell, adjusting the portfolio case under my arm. Inside were not work samples, but evidence, bank statements, receipts, emails documenting my contributions to the family over the years. I hated that I felt the need to bring proof, but experience had taught me that my word alone would not be sufficient against my father's dismissals. Mom answered, her smile strained. Amanda, I wasn't expecting you today. I texted this morning. I reminded her gently. I said we needed to talk. Oh, right, of course, she flustered, stepping back to let me in. I've been so busy with the church bake sale preparations. Your father's in his study. The house smelled of lemon furniture polish and the cinnamon cookies Mom baked when anxious. Everything looked exactly as it always had. The formal living room no one used, the family photos chronicling Michael's achievements, the carefully curated appearance of perfect suburban life. Could you ask Dad to join us in the living room? I requested. What I have to say concerns both of you. Mom's expression tightened with worry, but she nodded, disappearing down the hallway toward Dad's study. I moved into the living room, choosing to stand rather than sit. This wasn't a social call, and I wouldn't pretend otherwise. Dad entered first, his posture stiff, his greeting curt. Amanda, your mother says you have something to discuss. Mom followed, hovering nervously near the doorway as if preparing for a quick escape. I do, I confirmed. I'd like both of you to sit down, please. Dad raised an eyebrow at my directness, but complied, settling into his usual armchair. Mom perched on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped tightly in her lap. First, I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. I want to address what happened at Michael's celebration dinner. Ancient history, Dad dismissed with a wave. If that's all you came to discuss, it's not ancient history to me, I interrupted, a small act of defiance that visibly surprised him. And it's not all I came to discuss, but it is where we need to start. Dad's mouth tightened in disapproval, but he remained silent, waiting. You said I've never given this family anything, I stated, meeting his gaze directly. That I only take. I'm here to correct that misconception. Opening my portfolio case, I removed a folder containing my documented contributions. For the past 5 years, I've provided financial and practical support to this family that has gone completely unacknowledged. I placed the first document on the coffee table, a bank statement showing transfers to my parents' account during the period when Dad had been briefly unemployed. 2 mortgage payments during your job transition in 2021. Dad's expression darkened. Your mother and I never asked for. Mom did ask. I corrected him. She was afraid to tell you how tight things were getting. Mom's sharp intake of breath confirmed this truth she'd hoped would remain hidden. I continued methodically, laying out evidence of each contribution. Car repair for Mom's vehicle last winter. Emergency plumber when the basement flooded while you were on your golf trip. Loan to Michael for his security deposit, most of which remains unpaid. With each document, Dad's face grew more flushed, while Mom seemed to physically shrink into the sofa. But financial support is just the beginning, I continued. I've been this family's emotional caretaker for years. When Aunt Sarah was diagnosed with cancer, who drove Mom to visit her every weekend for 3 months. When Michael broke up with Stephanie, who spent hours on the phone helping him process his feelings. When you were hospitalized for your gallbladder, Dad, who organized the family schedule and made sure everything ran smoothly? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, but undeniable. I've given this family everything I had to give, I said quietly. Time, money, emotional energy, practical support. The problem isn't that I haven't given, it's that you haven't seen or valued what I've contributed. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his defensive posture wavering slightly. If you've been keeping some sort of ledger of favors, this isn't about favors, I cut in. It's about recognition. It's about acknowledging that I have worth beyond the narrow definition of success you've established. We've always valued you, Mom interjected tearfully. You've valued what you wanted me to be, I corrected her. Not who I actually am. Turning back to Dad, I continued with newfound strength. I didn't come here expecting an apology, though one would certainly be appropriate. I came to inform you both that I've accepted a senior designer position with Marshall and Reed in New York. I start in 3 weeks. Dad's expression hardened again. So, that's what this is about. You've made this decision without consulting your family, and now you're trying to justify abandoning us. I'm not abandoning anyone, I replied evenly. I'm pursuing an opportunity that aligns with my goals and values. And I didn't consult you because this isn't a family decision, it's my decision. After everything we've done for you, Dad began, his voice rising. That's exactly the problem, I interrupted. You see everything as transactional. You supported me, therefore I owe you compliance and proximity for the rest of my life. That's not what it's exactly what you mean, I insisted. But here's what I've realized. I don't owe you my dreams. I don't owe you geographic convenience. What I owe myself is the chance to build a life that fulfills me. Mom was openly crying now, but I maintained my focus on Dad, whose face had taken on an alarming shade of red. So you're just going to walk away, he stated flatly. Throw away everything we've built here. What have we built, Dad? I asked genuinely. A relationship where I'm constantly criticized and compared to Michael? Where my accomplishments are dismissed and my contributions ignored. That's not something worth preserving. I gathered the documents from the coffee table, returning them to my portfolio case. I'm not cutting contact with you.
I'm establishing boundaries.
I'll visit on my terms. I'll engage in conversations that are respectful. I'll participate in family gatherings where my value isn't questioned. And if we don't meet these conditions, Dad challenged. Then you'll see a lot less of me, I answered honestly. That's what taking it all back means. I'm reclaiming my time, my energy, and my right to be treated with dignity. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by Mom's quiet sniffles. Dad opened his mouth, likely to deliver another accusation or dismissal, when the front door opened unexpectedly. Michael entered the living room, taking in the tense tableau with a quick glance. "Sorry I'm late," he said, though he hadn't been invited as far as I knew. Traffic was worse than I expected. Dad turned to him with relief. "Michael, good. Perhaps you can talk some sense into your sister. She's decided to abandon the family for some design job in New York." I braced myself for Michael's usual alignment with Dad, the reinforcement of family expectations that had been our pattern for years. Instead, he surprised me. "She's right, Dad," Michael said quietly. Dad's head snapped back toward him.
What?
"Amanda's right," Michael repeated, moving to stand beside me. "You've always been harder on her than on me. You've dismissed her accomplishments because they don't fit your definition of success. And she has contributed to this family in ways none of us have properly acknowledged." The unprecedented support left me momentarily speechless. Dad's expression cycled through shock, betrayal, and uncertainty. "Since when do you?" Dad began. "Since Amanda made me see what's been happening," Michael interrupted. "We had coffee a couple weeks ago, and she laid it all out. At first, I didn't want to believe it, but then I started paying attention. She's not making this up, Dad." Mom looked between her children with wide, tear-filled eyes. "I never meant for you to feel unappreciated, Amanda." "I know, Mom," I said gently. "But intent doesn't erase impact." Dad sat very still, his gaze fixed on some middle distance, the first hint of uncertainty crossing his usually confident face. The family dynamic had shifted tangibly, the united front against my perspective crumbling with Michael's defection. "I'm not asking for anything unreasonable," I continued, addressing my father directly. "Just respect. Recognition of my choices and contributions. The same consideration you'd give to a colleague or a friend." Dad didn't respond immediately, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice lacked its usual authoritative tone. "And if we can't meet these expectations, then that's your choice," I replied simply. "And I'll respond accordingly." I gathered my portfolio case and purse, the confrontation complete. I'd said what I came to say, established the boundaries I needed, without anger or drama, just calm certainty. "I'm leaving for New York on the 20th, I added. "If you'd like to have dinner before I go, let me know. If not, I'll understand." As I walked toward the door, Michael fell into step beside me. "I'll walk you out," he offered. In the driveway, away from our parents' ears, he spoke quietly. That took guts. "Thanks for backing me up," I replied. I wasn't expecting that. Neither was I, honestly. He smiled ruefully. But it needed to be said. "And for what it's worth, I think you'll kill it in New York." The simple vote of confidence from my competitive brother meant more than I could express. We shared an awkward but genuine hug before I got into my car, both of us aware that something fundamental had changed in our relationship. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see my father standing in the doorway, watching me leave. His expression wasn't angry as I'd expected, but thoughtful, perhaps seeing me clearly for the first time in years. 6 months flew by in New York. My apartment in Brooklyn was half the size of my Chicago place for twice the rent, but the large windows overlooking a tree-lined street made up for the compact space. I'd transformed the second bedroom into a studio where I could work on personal projects when not at the agency. The adjustment hadn't been easy. New city, new job, new routines, everything required learning and adaptation. The fast pace of the agency challenged me professionally, while navigating New York's complexity tested me personally. But with each week, I grew more confident in both my work and my new life. Setting boundaries with my family proved equally challenging. The initial weeks after our confrontation brought silence from my father, tearful phone calls from my mother, and occasional supportive texts from Michael. I maintained the boundaries I'd established, responding to respectful communication, ignoring guilt trips, and focusing on building my new reality. Gradually, a new pattern emerged. Mom called weekly, our conversations increasingly normal as she learned to respect my boundaries. She avoided phrases like, "Your father says," or "When are you coming home?" instead asking about my work and sharing benign family news. Michael and I developed a relationship independent of our parents, texting about industry news. He followed several design blogs now, and occasionally video chatting. During one such call, he confessed to setting some boundaries of his own. "I told Dad I wouldn't be taking over his financial practice when he retires," he revealed. "I want to explore other options in finance, maybe something more focused on sustainable investing." How did he take it? I asked, genuinely curious. "Better than I expected," Michael admitted. "I think your departure shook something loose in him. He's different. Not completely transformed, but less rigid." With my father, communication remained minimal, a terse text on my birthday, a brief email when my first major project at Marshall and Reed received industry recognition. I neither pushed for more nor rejected these small overtures, allowing the relationship to find its new equilibrium. 3 months into my New York life, I joined a weekly art class, reconnecting with the passion I'd suppressed for years. My work began incorporating more creative elements, earning praise from the agency's creative director. "You've got a unique perspective," she told me during a review. "Keep pushing those boundaries." Boundaries, the word that had changed everything. Dr. Patterson and I continued our sessions virtually, processing my ongoing journey. "What does taking it all back mean to you now?" she asked during one session. I considered the question carefully. At first, it was about withholding my time, my support, my presence. Now it feels more like reclaiming my voice, my choices, my authentic self. "That's significant growth," she observed. "You've moved from reaction to creation." The therapy helped me recognize that healing wasn't linear. Some days brought confidence and clarity. Others sparked old insecurities and doubts. But overall, the trajectory moved upward, towards self-respect and genuine peace. 5 months after my move, an unexpected call disrupted my carefully constructed new normal, my father's number appearing on my phone screen on a Sunday afternoon. I answered with trepidation. "Hello, Amanda." His voice sounded unusually hesitant. "Do you have a moment?" "I do," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. An awkward pause followed before he continued. "Your mother tells me you've been assigned the Reynolds account." Reynolds Enterprises was a major client, their rebranding project a significant opportunity. "That's right." "That's impressive," he said, the compliment clearly unfamiliar territory. "Reynolds has a solid reputation." "Yes, they do." I agreed, waiting for the but that usually followed his rare praise. Instead, he surprised me. "I saw some of your preliminary designs. Your mother showed me the concepts on your website." I hadn't realized Mom was following my professional portfolio site. "What did you think?" I asked cautiously. Another pause. "They're good, Amanda. Really good. I may not understand all the artistic elements, but I can see the strategy behind them." The unexpected praise left me momentarily speechless. "I'm proud of you," he added quietly. I should have said that more often. The simple acknowledgement, words I'd longed to hear for decades, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you, Dad." Our conversation remained brief and somewhat stilted, but it marked a turning point. Not reconciliation exactly, but an opening, a crack in the wall that had separated us for so long. 2 weeks later, I received an email from a gallery in Brooklyn. They'd seen my personal work at a local art showcase and wanted to feature 3 pieces in an upcoming exhibition highlighting emerging artists. The validation of my artistic voice, the very aspect of myself my father had dismissed for years, felt like cosmic alignment. When I shared the news with my family, their responses reflected our evolving relationships. Mom expressed genuine excitement. Michael asked thoughtful questions about the gallery and the other featured artists. Dad sent a brief but significant message. "Congratulations. We'd like to attend, if that's all right with you." The night of the gallery opening arrived on a crisp autumn evening. I stood beside my displayed work, abstract pieces exploring themes of connection and separation, when I spotted them entering the gallery. Mom, nervous but smiling, Michael, surprisingly at ease in the artistic environment, and Dad, uncomfortable but present, making the effort. As they approached, I noticed the slight softening in Dad's expression as he examined my artwork. He wouldn't suddenly understand or appreciate abstract expressionism, but he was trying, and that effort meant more than perfect comprehension ever could. "These are interesting," he offered, gesturing to the largest piece. "The colors remind me of that lake we used to visit when you were small." The fact that he'd found a personal connection, however tentative, touched something deep within me. "That's exactly what inspired the palette," I confirmed, though it hadn't been conscious until he mentioned it. We moved through the gallery together, an awkward but peaceful foursome navigating both the physical space and the new emotional terrain between us. The conversation remained mostly superficial, but underneath ran currents of change and possibility. Later that evening, after they'd returned to their hotel, I sat in my apartment reflecting on the journey of the past 6 months. Taking back what I'd given had never really been about reclaiming material contributions or even emotional investments. It had been about reclaiming myself, my worth, my voice, my right to define success on my own terms. The lesson emerged with crystal clarity. Giving should come from choice, not obligation, from abundance, not fear. Sometimes you need to take back your power before you can truly give from a place of strength. My phone chimed with a text from Dad. "Your mother wants to have brunch tomorrow before our flight. Can you join us?" I smiled at the simple request. No demands, no expectations. Just an invitation I was free to accept or decline. "Yes," I replied. "I'd like that." The relationship with my family would never be perfect. Dad would never fully understand my creative spirit. Mom would always tend toward peacekeeping. Michael and I would continue navigating our complicated sibling dynamic. But we were learning a new way of relating, one built on respect rather than roles, on boundaries rather than blind obligation. In my studio, a new canvas waited, the beginning of a series I'd titled Taking Back, Giving Forward. The first piece would explore the journey from resentment to reclamation, from hurt to healing. It wouldn't erase the past, but it would transform it into something meaningful, just as I had done with my life. What's a moment in your life when you had to set boundaries with someone you love? Did it change your relationship for better or worse? Share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more about journeys of self-discovery and healing. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to stand in your truth. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to reclaim your power when you need it most.